everybody? It is me, Game Penguin 21, and today, right, I'm gonna be honest. I've tried to record this video like 4 or 5 times by this point, and I'm gonna be honest. It is very hard to talk about this subject without talking about just a whole mess of other stuff, and it's stupid to try and, make some sort of cohesive point across this thing, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. Video games themselves are really good, and this channel in and of itself was built on video games and talking about video games and talking about and doing and playing, because that's what I like. That's been my entire life for like 16 years now, I think, since I got Minecraft and I did some Club Penguin and other stuff like that. I've seen games come, go, studios come, studios go. But recently, there's been a lot of negativity that seemingly surrounds just the whole of the internet when it comes to video games. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that games themselves are not fun anymore, they're not good to play, and that they have all these problems, and it's because of the woke agenda and the massacres of this and that and stuff. But I've said this repeatedly, and I think that I just want to gather up all of the extra stuff that I say and put them into like one video that's this video and talk about it. With that being said, if you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, other than a like and subscribe, which is always enough, links down to everything in the description below. So, what is it that I'm here today to talk about? Well, the negativity in the gaming industry, or the gaming space specifically, has been ongoing for a number of years at this point. There have been so many people who have made videos on this that it's coming off as almost bad. I'm not saying that games themselves have fallen off and have become less good due to one reason or another. I think it's an entire amount of decisions that seems to have culminated in what has happened here. Mainly through people who want more money, who don't care about the art form or the understanding of what video games are, how video games themselves can be an expression of various emotions and things like that. And it's not that video games themselves are bad video games, or that modern video games don't have the same sorts of feeling as older video games. It's just that there are modern video games that are here that have the passion, the drive, the understanding of what video games as a medium can do, but just there are a lot more out there that just don't. See, I used to like Call of Duty a lot. I loved Call of Duty as one of my first mainstream AAA games, but over the years, I got tired of some of the excess stuff that didn't make it Call of Duty, that didn't make it what I grew up with. And I'm not sure if that has something to do with me or that has something to do with the game. Maybe it's a mixture of both. But I stopped playing after Call of Duty Vanguard because, quite honestly, I just couldn't. I didn't like Call of Duty World War II because of the marketing, because they said, hey, they have no iconic characters. I'm still not going to let that go because that just is a terrible marketing decision overall. But again, World War II to a lot of people was really good because it was more of a, quote, return to form. But I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me. And I've come to realize over the years that games that are not for me are okay. And I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people on the internet seem to keep forgetting, or seem to keep not understanding. That not every video game is made for everyone. That not every video game themselves has to be this mass market appealing thing of just, oh yeah, all of this is real good and all the representation and stuff. And I think with the recent, say, Vanguard controversy that's been happening right now, the dialogue that's been leaked or talked about and shown online of people coming out as this and that and the other thing, it doesn't feel natural, at least to me. And I'm coming from someone who knows a lot of people who are LGBT and stuff like that. The thing is that, sure, at some point, maybe there were people who understood in some regards and held off on things. But the reason why things like Dustborn and things like the Dragon Age and things, the modern Dragon Age Veilguard, as well as a couple other games that are trying to be these, quote, woke successes or whatever, or they're trying to be all-inclusive, is the thing with art and art in general is that it's not inclusive. It's really not when you break it down to its fundamental aspects as to what art is. Art, in and of itself, is a human experience, a human thought put into the physical world to encapsulate a moment in time that allows it to flourish and such. Good art stands the test of time. Good art shows and represents what exactly video games or even just art in general is. For an interesting, strange example, let's look at the finals in terms of a game that I will never shut the fuck up about because it's just that good. The finals in and of itself is a great game. It is a good piece of work, but I wouldn't necessarily call it high art. I would call it just regular art, mid art, if you will. And mid as not in the mid as in, oh, this game is mid. No. I mean mid as in middling of the road art. Art that is not high art, that has something to say, but also art that has enough to say that it will eventually, when the full picture is revealed, will make a lot more sense in the long term, at least in terms of what's been released so far. It is a well put together piece of creative individualism put together by people with a focused vision, which is what I want when it comes to things like video games now. A focused way that is specific to the audience that it's about. When you try to include everyone, when you try to represent the entire spectrum of people, you end up with nothing to say, as we've seen in a number of different examples. For Dustborn, as an example, there has been, again, a number of dialogue that has been super various and inclusive things, and has just been the most amount of things to try to be in stuff, and they said that it was inspired by 2016 politics. That sounds very charged and very emotional, and yet it comes off as whiny and bitchy in some regard, and it comes off as using outdated lingo and things that just don't make it, say, timeless. So what is the difference between something like that versus something like the finals, or say Halo, a timeless design that allows for interesting creative retrospectives and things like that? Is it the developers that's the fault here? I wouldn't necessarily say so, at least not for the majority of the good developers, and good developers is very much so subjective when it comes to things like video games and even art in general. It's the same thing with regular artists. But the thing with art is that art goes through a lot of stages, and if you look at through the entirety of art history, you'll see that those stages do have positive impacts, despite the fact that some of the artists are just kind of bad people, but also not. It's very strange. I think as of right now, in terms of, say, art history for video games, we're in kind of a blue period. A period of time where there is a lot of change, a lot of unrest, and a lot of just overturning of old ideals and new ideas coming in that are just not accepted because it takes time to create those same ideas. And it seems to always come down that the creative people, usually in a society, whenever you have them, they do offer some sort of prospect to it, but the people who are more dedicated to different aspects of society, the ones that are, quote, doing the work and, quote, getting the monies in the bag and whatever, those people usually outshine, in the short term, those creative people. However, in the long term, the creative people are usually remembered more fondly because those creative people tend to actually make something worth remembering. I don't think anyone really remembers, like, say, the manager for certain artists as well, unless they're infamous or evil for whatever reason. I think that a good thing that kind of happened, a good thing turned evil as a weird explanation for, say, an artist would probably be Bob Ross. Bob Ross made, while he may have had a sort of simplistic way of explaining things, he made a show, he made essentially a podcast on primetime television before podcasts were a thing, about painting, about his love of art, and yes, he was a wonderful, beautiful person. But his ideals have been twisted by, say, the manager and also some of the people out there because of just various monetary reasons, and that usually ends up destroying some aspects to some people. It's the same thing here. They saw really amazing, very innovative ideas to just completely and just making it work, and then they push the money through it to try to make it, quote, better, without realizing that it just doesn't work that way. I'm going to use the finals again as an example. I've used this example so many times, but the people who make the finals, Embark Studios, have been working on, say, the finals and stuff, and they have content apparently for the next 5 years. That's a lot of content. The only other game that I know that would have had 5 years of continuous content and updates was Dying Light and Dying Light 2, which also seems to be going through the same content thing. And Dying Light 1 was so well polished and well put together, in my opinion, that it had so many innovations that I didn't think a game like Dying Light would have. It's a parkour zombie game. This has those same innovations that I can see. It has some of the best destruction you will find in any AAA game. It has some of the most well-feeling and pretty well-balanced weapons across the board. It has fun game modes that incorporate all this movement and tactical assertion, and even the destruction is moved into the tactical stuff. See a wall? Bust down that wall. If the cash out spawns there, guess what? That wall doesn't exist anymore. Or if you, say, can dash around and go invisible and use a grappling hook, or use a jump pad to get up onto something, drop down a turret and throw some grenades down there, get a smoke grenade out and, like, heal your buddy up and do this and do that. All of this is incredibly innovative, but also harkens back to everything that was previously built upon in the video games. The destruction comes specifically from a lot of things such as the Battlefield franchise, and specifically, and sometimes Red Faction, as well as there was also Call of Duty mechanics in the shooting and the firing of the guns, and how you can kind of customize them, but not specifically enough. It's enough to make it fresher and more experienced and stuff. They have a variety of different guns for different classes, and they bring in some class-based hero stuff from, say, Team Fortress, and grappling hooks and invisibility and dashing, like in other games. I think Quake might have had something like that. Overall, it takes a bunch of the ideas that worked, puts them together, and formulates ways to link them together so each of those individual mechanics coalesce and completely work together like a well-oiled machine. That's not to say it's perfect, and very much so not perfect. The netcode could definitely use some updates and could always be improved. The way that specific game modes are balanced can definitely be helpful. Some of the guns aren't too useful in current meta situations, and picking one thing over another thing usually tends to feel like you're not contributing to your team at all. But at the end of the day, the one thing and the most important thing about the finals is that it's fun. It's fun to play the video game. And guess what? It costs you $0 to start playing today a fun Call of Duty-like experience that blows everything else out of the water. I'm often reminded of people like Blue Drake and people like Big Fry who are making their own video games because they're tired and they are upset with how the current gaming market has been going, and I tend to agree. The AAA gaming space is no longer for me. I'm no longer this, quote, modern audience that these people want. I'm no longer the people that would play a lot of these games that they're releasing. I'm not going to sit here and bitch and complain and say, fix the industry, make it like it how it was. No. Fuck that. That's stupid. Yeah, certainly. The old days were really cool because there was a lot of innovation and stuff. But then I look at things like The Finals and things like Elden Ring and some of those modern games that actually kept my attention, made me play for hundreds, if not thousands of hours. And I look at that and go, why would I want to go back when these games don't exist back then? And that's when I realized I want games that speak to me and fuck all the other games. I'm not going to say that those games are bad. I just don't have interest in them. Like any of Sony's games because of the Helldivers 2 controversy. I'm not going to say that I'm a little bitter about that, but I'm not making a PSN account just to play some of their games. And yeah, I could go and play Helldivers 2 with no PSN account, but I really don't feel like it because I just lost all interest in that game just because it's not for me anymore. It's not my game. I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm not going to say this game's garbage because it doesn't have the mechanics that I want. No. I'm going to say it's in a game that's not for me. And I think if more people said that, if more people said this game is not for me, but I can respect what the game does for the industry and what the game does for everything else, in the positive direction at least, but still be able to critique it and say, here's a lot of the negative reasons as to why I think this game is bad, I think that that could end up working in a positive direction. Because, again, people only ever really want to bitch, complain, and just completely denounce anything that is not within their own small group. But for me, I tend to be like, I might not agree with you on everything. I might not agree with a lot of your choices on things like gaming, things like the actual different sorts of genres that are out there, the actual feeling of specific games. I might not agree with everyone on that, but I respect your opinion enough to have a debate as to why you like those games, to why you feel those games are important to you. To which I look at that and say, I understand. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that gaming as a whole is going through that blue period, and there will be positive change eventually, as I have seen it in specific other smaller indie type spaces, and spaces where they are not concerned too much about the money. But they inevitably are hard to get through sometimes, and when you do get through them, you'll probably be better for it. Anyway, that is my rant on essentially the state of the gaming industry. I wanted to put this in here because I didn't want to just have a complete negative thing. Don't worry, next week there will be more assault. I did find a couple of videos that I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to talk about this topic because there was a huge amount of news that dropped, and I did also have that part 2, so I needed to get some positivity, at least on the channel, so yeah. With that being said, if you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form other than a like and subscribe, which is always enough, hit that bell icon and links down below to other ways to support me. Bandcamp, Twitch, and I sometimes try to stream on YouTube. I didn't stream last Wednesday because I had a job. But with all that being said, my name is GamePang121, and a peace off.
Hey man, can I get a favor? Yeah, sure, I know, see you later. Sometimes I just wanna be a hater. Gotta No